You could feel it inside Crypto.com arena before the fourth quarter even started. This wasn't just another big night. This was one of those performances that makes people sit back and realize they're watching something that doesn't come around often in this franchise. Luka Doncic didn't just lead the Lakers to a win, he took control of the entire night in a way that felt inevitable. 42 points, 12 assists, complete command of the pace. But the number that's really staying with people inside the organization is that 600-point mark in March. That's not just production, that's sustained dominance over an entire month, wearing one of the heaviest jerseys in sports. And when you pass a name like Kobe Bryant in any category tied to scoring, it doesn't just go into the record books. It becomes part of the identity of your time here. What's being said internally is that this stretch has changed how this team sees itself. Not just confidence, expectation, because now it's no longer about whether this group can compete. It's about how far this version of the Lakers can actually go when everything starts tightening up in the postseason. And that shift in mindset is coming directly from what Doncic is doing on the floor. There's also a quiet understanding around the league that this isn't empty production. The Lakers didn't just stack wins. They controlled games. 15 wins in 17 games doesn't happen by accident, especially this late in the season. It speaks to structure, to chemistry, to players understanding exactly where they fit. And a lot of that is being dictated by Doncic's presence every single possession. And then there's the bigger picture that people inside the building are starting to acknowledge without saying it too loudly. When you enter territory that only Michael Jordan has touched in league history, the conversation changes whether you want it to or not. At 26, doing this in Los Angeles with this kind of pressure, it carries a different weight. Right, built for the bright lights, if you believe the Lakers respond when the spotlight is strongest. What's impressed the coaching staff just as much as the numbers is how controlled everything feels. There's no forcing the issue, no chasing stats. After the game, his message was simple. If you're not winning, none of this matters. That tone is setting the standard inside the locker room right now. It's not about highlights. It's about positioning this team to be dangerous when it matters most. At the same time, LeBron reaching the all-time wins record added another layer to a night that already felt historic. Inside that locker room, there's a clear awareness that they're sharing the floor with someone who has defined what winning looks like for over 2 decades. And that combination, a player still performing at that level at 41, alongside someone entering his prime playing like this, it's starting to feel like something that could turn into a real problem for the rest of the conference. You're also seeing the ripple effect across the roster. Austin Reeves looks more comfortable, Rui is playing with more clarity, the spacing is cleaner, decisions are quicker. That's what happens when you have someone controlling the game at that level. Everything else starts to fall into place without needing to force it. And quietly, this is where the conversation about the postseason begins to shift. Not publicly, not in bold statements, but in the way people are talking around the team. There's a belief growing that this isn't just a good run. It might be the foundation of something that peaks at exactly the right time. If you're watching closely, you can feel it building, and moments like this usually don't stay contained for long. Comment, the banners tell the story, if you believe the history of this franchise still matters today. Because what's happening right now isn't just about records being broken, it's about a team starting to understand exactly who it can be when everything is aligned. And when that realization hits a franchise like this, it tends to lead somewhere big. And there's another layer to all of this that people are only starting to talk about now. It's not just the production, it's the timing. Late in the season, when legs get heavier and rotations tighten, he's not slowing down. He's accelerating. That's usually the clearest sign that something real is forming inside a team that understands what's coming next. Inside the coaching staff, there's been a noticeable shift in how sets are being called. More trust, more freedom, but also more responsibility placed in his hands during critical stretches. It's not accidental. They're preparing for playoff basketball, where every possession becomes deliberate and the margin for error disappears. And right now, the ball is finding the right decisions more often than not. Before we continue this story, subscribe to the channel so you stay updated with everything happening with the Lakers. There's also growing respect in the locker room for how he's handling the moment. Veterans notice these things quickly. The way he controls tempo, the way he reads double teams, the way he slows the game when needed. Those are details that separate high-level players from those who actually shape postseason outcomes. And that recognition is starting to show in how teammates move around him. At the same time, the presence of LeBron in this environment adds something you can't quantify. Not speeches, not gestures, just experience. Knowing when to push, when to stay patient, when to let the game come to you. That influence doesn't show up in the box score, but it's there in the decisions being made late in games. And it's part of why this run hasn't felt unstable. If you've been around this franchise long enough, you know when things start aligning like this, expectations change quickly, not from the outside, from within. And that's when the pressure becomes real in Los Angeles. Right championship standard if you believe the Lakers should always be chasing the top. Another detail that shouldn't be overlooked is how the team has responded defensively during this stretch. It hasn't been perfect, but it's been timely. Key stops, better communication, fewer breakdowns in moments that usually decide games. That kind of improvement late in the season is rarely random. It's usually tied to belief and accountability. And here's where everything starts to connect. When you combine elite shot creation, improved structure, and a locker room that's fully engaged, you get something that's difficult to predict, but even harder to stop once it gains momentum. That's what teams across the league are quietly paying attention to right now. There's also a sense that the front office is watching closely before making any final decisions. Not hesitation, evaluation. Because if this version of the team continues to respond like this, any move has to elevate what's already working, not disrupt it. That's a delicate balance, especially for a franchise that doesn't have the luxury of getting it wrong. And if you're following everything as it unfolds, this is exactly the moment where staying informed starts to matter. Because when things shift in Los Angeles, they don't happen slowly. They happen all at once. So if you want to stay ahead of every update, every move, every decision that could reshape this team overnight, make sure you're subscribed right now. This is the kind of stretch where missing one piece of information means missing the full picture. Comment Los Angeles expects more if you believe this team should never settle for less than contention. Because what's building here isn't being announced. It's being revealed game by game, possession by possession. And the closer this team gets to the postseason, the clearer it becomes that this story is still unfolding in ways that could redefine how this season is remembered. There's a different kind of tension starting to appear around this group, and it's not the negative kind. It's the kind that comes when players begin to understand exactly what's in front of them. You can see it in late-game possessions, in how deliberate everything looks, in the way mistakes are being corrected immediately instead of lingering. People close to the team have pointed out that the communication has improved in ways that don't always show up on broadcasts. Timeouts feel sharper, adjustments are happening faster, and there's a sense that everyone is aligned on what this team needs to be when the games slow down. That doesn't happen overnight, and it usually signals a team that is preparing for something bigger than regular season wins. There's also an internal awareness that the margin for error is gone, not in a dramatic way, but in a realistic one. When you carry this level of expectation, every stretch matters, every rotation decision matters, every defensive lapse gets remembered, and yet, instead of tightening up, this group has been responding with more control, not less. One thing that's quietly gaining attention is how comfortable the supporting pieces have become in their roles. There's less hesitation, fewer forced plays, and more trust in the system that's been built over these last weeks. That kind of clarity is what allows star performances to actually translate into wins instead of just headlines. Right, La still believes if you trust the Lakers can rise when the pressure gets real. And here's where the situation becomes even more interesting. The closer this team gets to the postseason, the less this feels like a hot streak, and the more it starts to look like a version of the Lakers that understands how to navigate high-stakes basketball. That's a different conversation entirely. Inside the organization, there's also a recognition that moments like this don't come often. When you have elite production, veteran leadership, and a roster that's finally finding rhythm at the same time, you don't wait. You lean into it. And that mindset is starting to shape decisions, both on the floor and behind the scenes. If you've been watching this channel and following every development, this is exactly the phase where things can change quickly without warning. Rotations shift, strategies evolve, and sometimes one single game can redefine the entire outlook. That's why staying connected right now isn't optional if you want the full picture as it happens. Make sure you're subscribed and locked in because what's coming next won't be explained twice. Comment, this story is far from over if you think there is still another big chapter waiting for this team. Because at this point, it's no longer about proving anything to the outside world. It's about how far this group believes it can go and what they're willing to do to get there. And from everything being seen behind the scenes, that belief is only getting stronger as the stakes continue to rise. If the Los Angeles Lakers are your team, subscribe now so you never miss what's happening behind the scenes. And the closer this team gets to that moment, the more everything starts to feel intentional, not rushed, not forced, just a group that understands exactly what it's building toward. This is when the Lakers have always been at their most dangerous, when the noise fades and the focus sharpens. There's a quiet confidence forming, the kind that doesn't need to be announced. You see it in the execution, in the discipline, in how games are being controlled when everything tightens. And if this level holds, the conversation around this team is going to shift faster than most people expect. Right, the Lake Show lives on. If you feel this franchise still has more to prove, stay locked in and subscribe right now, because this is exactly when the biggest stories begin to unfold, and the next update might change everything you think about this Lakers run.